Ryan Jarrell here for LowKick MMA, and my next guest will face Pedro Munhoz at UFC 258, and of course, it's Jimmie Rivera. Jimmie, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And before we dive into this last fight, a big win over Cody Stamann, I got to get your take on your traveling to Abu Dhabi, because really it looks like Dana White has you guys flying on Air Force One. You're really going in style.
Yeah. Sorry. We literally fly to Vegas and do a 24-hour quarantine with a COVID test, and then from there we get on this airline, Emirates airline, and it's beautiful. I mean, all the fighters get first class, so these beds. I mean, I'm tiny, so it works out well. These seats turn into bed, and it's like plenty of room, and you basically have 14 and a half hour flight to Abu Dhabi, and it's just great. Like we serve whatever we want to eat in a way. Like they have a menu, but as much as we need, they really take care of us. And then once we get to Abu Dhabi, it's like we do a 48-hour quarantine, so we're not allowed to leave our room at all. So they actually bring mats and a treadmill there. And I mean, it's not that big of a mat to train in, but it's something. And then we do 3 COVID tests 3 days in a row, and it's crazy, but it is what it is with COVID going around and how high it is right now. All the the positive tests and stuff like that. It's just something you have to do. But the UFC really does it very professional. Like I believe next week I have to do a COVID test before I fly out and kind of go from there.
Gotcha. Do you like doing the long flights? I mean, I like traveling, but I don't like being on a plane for any longer than a few hours. Is that something that you have to maybe, take like some Tylenol PM or something to knock yourself out, or do you not mind that stuff?
No, I told my wife, like, if we're going to go anywhere far, any more than like I want to say like 8 hours, we're definitely flying first class, like I did to Abu Dhabi, and we'll just have to save up because it was well worth it, for sure.
Nice. Well, let's talk about that big win over Cody. I know you were a little disappointed with yourself in cage post fight. You wanted to get a finish, but you did take that fight on very, very short notice. Looking back on it now, like what is the takeaway from that win over a really tough guy?
I mean, you know what? I just wanted to be engaged a little more, and he was just waiting. And, it's tough when you fight guys sometimes, and they're just like, they're waiting for you to jump in. So you don't really want to make that mistake. You kind of want to, ease your way in. But all around, looking back, it was nice to get that, short notice call and get that win and get my hand raised, for sure, especially with that long trip home.
Sometimes is it nice though just to log the 15 minutes of cage time rather than get a quick win? I mean, obviously quick win is always nice, right? But like to actually get in there and get the time that really you're going to need when you're going up against those top 2, 3, 5 guys in the division. Is that something that you kind of take and you move forward as a better fighter?
Yeah, Harley, what you take? I'm sorry. Yeah. Stop grabbing stuff. Sorry, my dog's grabbing stuff. My wife moves stuff around in the house. What's it called? I don't mind it. I mean, my boxing coach, it's funny you bring it up. We're having this discussion that, I could finish people. I don't look for it all the time. And I apologize with this interview because I do have pups all around, so they're not stopping bothering me because I'm never home because I'm always training and working. Right, Mikey? Yes. Hi. How do you do, Mikester? So with that said, I mean, sometimes it is nice to get the finish and be done. But, I mean, all around the experience of getting in there fighting, I don't mind. I mean, I've been through 2 25-minute wars, title fights. I mean, it was earlier on in my career, probably my 6th and 7th fight of my pro fights. But I've been there, I've done it, and I always come in shape. Even with that fight, I was in pretty good shape. I think one of the best things I enjoyed with that last-minute fight was I didn't have to cut as much weight. And, as the fights go on, I'm even contemplating in a couple of years, maybe even moving up to 45, trying it out. I'm probably not as big as Volkanovski, but, I know he was a big guy and played rugby. But like I'm kind of the same height as him, and I'm it's easy for me to put muscle on. So it's always interesting to see what I can do if I took a 6 months and put weight on and got bigger.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. I was really intrigued by that matchup with you and Cody because he's a guy that has a really high ceiling, much like yourself. Was there anything that he surprised you with in that fight?
No, not at all. I mean, I was ready for him. I fought guys like him who are, good strikers and really good wrestlers. Obviously probably one of the best wrestlers in the division would be, I guess, Sterling right now. But I was able to stop Sterling's takedowns and get him to the ground with me on top. Going into that second, especially that third round, I felt like Staten was tired, was looking for that one big shot, and I was just being cool, calm, and collected. I didn't want to rush into anything. I didn't want to eat any shots I didn't need to, which was, I mean, when I do walk out of that fight, I had my foot hurt from kicking him, and I think I had like a little bruise on my face or something like that, and that was like my only injuries for the fight.
Mm. Your post-fight interview kind of really got me in the feels a little bit. You were talking about Susie, who's battling cancer. I believe she's a UFC employee. Can you give us any update on how she's doing?
She's doing well. She always tags us and stuff on Instagram. I talked to her, I guess you want to say here and there, but mainly over social media. I don't like bothering people. You know what I mean? I always say, my wife and I reached out to her if she ever needs anything or if she's ever on the East Coast. She's more than welcome. Just hit us up, let us know. She's doing well. She's doing her therapies and stuff like that are working well. It's just horrible to hear that. My aunt, who was very close to me, was like my second mother, passed away of cancer. I have her tattoo on my ribs, and just everybody has, my best friend's dad died of cancer. Someone, or you've gone through it, that died of cancer. It sucks. It is what it is. I say F you to cancer, and it's just shit you have to deal with. But you don't forget them, and you remember the good times, and that's it.
Yeah, no doubt. I lost my dad to cancer. I actually have his tattoo on my back shoulder here, so I relate. And when I see athletes like yourself really put a light on that, it really means a lot to me because I think it's a really wonderful thing. What you do is great, so I just wanted to commend you on that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course,
Sorry
man.
for your loss too.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Now that you're back home, obviously, back to the grind, training all the time. What has life been like for you through the holidays? And being a dog dad and everything else that you have going on. Like, just run me through like your day-to-day life right now.
I mean, the pandemic, slowed stuff up. I got Corona in like March when it was at the high peak, and I gave it to my wife. It was tough. We weren't working for a while, and then I actually, my school closed down in the city because it was just. I'm sorry, man. He's a lover. He loves giving kisses, right, Mikey? He's only like how old are you now? 9 months. Yes, I know. I don't want. Okay, he's only 9 months old. He's like 100 pounds. Hi, Harley Bear. It was just waking up and training, and then I did not open up my school, but we tried to do some online stuff, and we had some students train just to kind of keep up with it. But ultimately, I actually ended up closing my school in the city, and combined that school went to another school that was not too far in the city. And I ended up just focusing on training, doing a little side work right now. So my days are still busy because I train in the morning, little side work midday, and then I'll go back and hey, stop. And I'll go back and train again at night. Sorry, man. But days are usually busy, so I usually get done with my training session, my second one around like 7:30, 8 o'clock. I kind of like take a break through the day and do some side work to make some money. One of the biggest things I think I have to say I started is me and the police chief of the town of where our headquarters is at. We started a program where officers have to train with me 3 times a month, mandated. And from there, basically, I'm teaching them an hour jiu-jitsu and a half hour boxing, offense and defense. So this way, a lot of officers go in there. They go to the academy for 6 months. They only do a week or two of defensive tactics, which is, close range self-defense and layman's terms. And that's it. And then either they continue doing it when they graduate or they don't. And that's a huge thing because officers are out there to protect, victims. They're out there, have to restrain suspects, and they're out there and they have to make sure they go home at the end of the night. So what I want to do is, and what I've been doing with the police chief and we started the program, is basically teach officers how to defend themselves without resorting to their OC spray, their taser, their gun. I mean, obviously, you show up and someone has a gun, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, but a lot of it has to do with just learning how to defend themselves if they have to, grab someone, if someone grabs them, if someone's on top of a victim, and be able to hold someone down without doing submissions and locks. Learning how to use your body is a big thing. And you see from the George Floyd, like what the officer did was wrong. And me and the chief agree. And there's better ways to handle the situation. Unfortunately, these cops are trained in the law, and they're trained how to shoot, and they're trained in the taser, and they're trained in OC spray. But they're, they even get OC sprayed in an academy. They get sprayed. But they're not trained enough in close range self-defense and jiu-jitsu, and they need more of that training so they are confident when they go out there. I mean, in a situation where the police chief started the program, in any situation, it's not right away hands-on. That's the last resort. But right away de-escalation, verbal judo, using your words. But if you are not confident that you could that in those words, and if you're not confident you could defend yourself, then those words don't come across strong, right?
Sure.
And the biggest thing is we want officers going there, and when you are able to defend yourself, that confidence, you see it, you're able to handle yourself in situations verbally. You believe in the words more, and you could defend yourself in any situation. And it really comes down to martial arts. So the biggest thing that we do with the officers is that they have to train with us until they're retired, or and the main ones go to all the patrolmen. They're out on the street all the time. We do have some detectives that train with us, but they're not required because they're doing their investigations. But the patrolman is really important. They're out there going on every call. And, Elmwood Park, for instance, is not a huge town. They're not doing as many calls, but you still get maybe, average 80 calls a day, 70, 80 calls a day about. And they're all little things to big things, but you'll get those calls. And maybe maybe like 50 to 80 is like an average. But still, you want those officers going there, and you want to be able to have the officer protect whoever's there, even protect the suspect. Just because you're arresting someone and we talk about it in the training doesn't mean that you're disrespectful with them. You still treat them the same way. They have rights just like you do and everybody else does. So that's another thing. If they become combative, they are able to hold the person down. I teach them basic stuff. Learn how to use pressure from the mount, from the side mount. While they're holding the person down, start verbally de-escalating again. Tell them to calm down. It's kind of like a good example. I think I tell people is that you have a kid throwing a tantrum, they're swinging the arms. What's most of the time that happens, a mom does, they hug them. And by a minute or two, they start calming down. They're crying, and just they can barely talk, but they're just upset and crying. That's the kind of same thing as a suspect. If you think about it, they're going crazy or they might be drunk. You hold them down for a minute or two, they're going to be dead tired. Meanwhile, you're not wasting any energy. You're just learning how to use your body to hold them down, and that's it. And then eventually you calm them down. If you have to keep holding them, you can, but it's simple stuff like that. I think that's neglected, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I think needs to be taught to the officers and to be spread around more. And there's programs out there, they do a week or two, and I'm not going to name the programs. They do a week or two of training, even the academy a week or two, and that's it. I'm like, you're not certified, you're not great at something, you got to do it all over again. Do you have to go live like a jiu-jitsu class? No, but if you practice these techniques over and over again, you're going to feel comfortable. Eventually down the line, you don't mind going live because you want to add that resistance in there to see how it feels. So that program has been something I've been working on huge, and it's been going really well. We just slowed down a little bit because of COVID, just precautions and stuff like that. But it's going really well, and officers have done really well doing it. I've seen a lot of success with them doing it and getting in shape.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear. My old MMA instructor, Marcus Davis, I'm sure you know who he was, former UFC welterweight. Yeah. He's doing something very similar down in North Carolina. I'm not sure the specifics. I think it's like more hand-to-hand combat or something to that level with like weapons and whatnot. But I love that. I think that's phenomenal to have professional MMA, fighters like yourself to help out these police officers. Are you guys doing it at Tiger Schulman's, or is this at an offsite location?
No, we're doing it at Tiger Schulman's. Basically I've put together a curriculum and I've had to adjust it a lot because, everybody that teaches it might be a little different. I've been had the pleasure of owning a school, and being in a school and teaching someone that's a beginner and understanding what beginners think, understanding what people do on the street. And so with everything that I've known and stuff that Tyler Showman's taught me, I've took myself out there and see what officers have to wear. We've changed some such stuff. As I've been teaching officers, it was kind of like the first couple months were trial and error, and I would try some stuff out, having a hard time. Like, you know what, let's change it to this. You know what I mean? Let's fix it so they understand it better. Because it's not only that, like, an example is like, the officers down with Park, they have a vest. On their vest, they got their clips, their taser, flashlight, whatever. That outer vest that they have, where they actually look a little more tactical. It's big, it's bulky, so it's a little harder to get a bear hug when you do like a gable grip or a snowball grip, you want to call it. So instead of doing that, we adjusted. I'm like, all right, I don't want you to do this. I want you to go to S grip, where you interlock your fingers. So this way, there's like little things like that. So this way they could do it with the vest on, and they can reach. It's only a couple, like 2 or 3 inches, but it makes a difference. So when they grab on, they could, take the person down and be able to hold them down and actually get a grip. So there's just stuff like that that goes into the program that, I've been working on with the police chief. I went through courses myself. Every now and every week I'm in there, just getting the grasp of it, seeing what they're doing, seeing what they go through. It's really important. It's really, really important. It's very interesting. It's almost funny because, one of the sergeants sent me the other day, and probably this other day, I mean, a couple weeks ago, sent me, I had no idea Steven Seagal was an actual cop. You know what I mean? I didn't know because he has a show. And then someone was telling me the other day that I guess Shaquille O'Neal is like he's an officer 2 or a special 2 or something like that. I'm not really sure. I never really looked into it, but I saw like the advertisement for Steven Seagal's like show. They're coming out with the second season, or did, and I was like, no way! I didn't really know he was a cop. Like that's interesting. So.
That's very interesting. That's going to make you feel pretty darn good. Like when you hear a story about something that you taught a police officer. I'm sure you've heard some stories that has actually.
It's already happened. Already happened. We have one cop. He's actually a student in Jackson Heights, but he comes and trains with me, and literally I guess he's a New York City cop, and I guess a lot of it. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city. I'm not there anymore, and sometimes I'm like, thank God I'm not. But he's had to defend himself. Like, he's been training with me for since I want to say November, maybe. About November, he's been training with me, just doing jiu-jitsu because he hasn't started yet in his school. And he's been doing 3 months with me, and he's already had to defend himself like a handful of times. Like just the other day, he came in, guy had a knife. He's trying to, grab the knife from the guy, and the guy chokes him and gets him in a guillotine. He was able to defend himself. But he came in and he showed me what happened. I'm like, this is what you should do. That's better. Like, let me show you this. Unfortunately, that month that we worked this move, he wasn't there yet. So I was like, I wish he was there when we worked it, because we did work. It's like, if you're standing and it happens, like you're trying to grab something, you're grabbing the person's legs or trying to hold them, whatever it is. The person just comes around and tries to get you in like a guillotine choke. And I was like, I wish you were there, because I taught the officers how to defend himself, but he was still able to, what I've taught him, to defend himself and hold it. And by the time his partner got there, they were able to arrest the guy, get his weapon off of him and take care of business. But I mean, it's crazy what's going on right now. And, I don't think sides, because there's always 3 sides, I think, to it. There's some right on this side and some stuff I don't agree with. Same thing here. And then there's what should really happen. And, George Floyd is a good example. Should have been arrested right into the cop car, and that was it, You have other things that happen that, that you question, what I mean? Like, there's a lot more facts to the Breonna Taylor thing if you look it up. And that's why, because a lot of things that happen, I look it up now. I have to educate myself to know what's going on. And, I don't like throwing stuff in there. Just, if you read what really happens, you might, and you see all the details out, you'll see, you'll understand what clear kind of happened with the police officers. And it's very unfortunate that, long story short, her boyfriend was shooting at the officers and they returned fire and she got caught in the crossfire. And that's what really happened. You know what I mean? So it's, it's unfortunate, but it does happen. You wish that doesn't happen, but you know, at the end of the day, too, you know, if that was my daughter, I wouldn't want her dating someone like that either. I'm like, you know, I want, you know, there's a lot of stuff to it, so I don't want to get into that. But yeah, there's a lot of things in there. There's no, you know, both wrongs, two wrongs will make a right, but there's a lot of things that both sides can work on to make better.
For sure. Well, very commendable that you're doing that with the police officers. That's great to hear. As far as this specific camp goes and training partners, has that changed at all, or are you tweaking anything leading into this rematch with Munhoz, or has it just pretty much been the same guys that you normally go with?
You know what? The first fight I went was Pedro. I did a little different stuff for cardio, and I felt it in the fight. But I actually corrected myself after that. It was my second fight in the UFC. Long story short, I wasn't doing the usual things I usually do to build up my cardio. And after that fight, I'm like, I got to stick to my usual. But I've been doing my usual. From the Piran fight, I actually was able to get my nose fixed and get my sinuses fixed as well at the same time, because I was like a 90% blockage. I couldn't breathe through my nose. So the fact that I was doing that and fighting was, I don't understand how the hell I was doing it. So that really helped out. That's why, you know, even though with that short notice with Cody Stamen, I mean, I was training at the time and running and sprinting and all that. Even though I got that fight in five days notice, I was in shape. So, you know, I wish I was maybe a little bit more shape. Like I had maybe another week to like really gauge where I was at. But, you know, it was a last minute call and I had to take it. But with that now, you know, my cardio, I feel great. I'm actually looking forward to being in Vegas with warm weather, and with the training, I just get guys that emulate him, and I just spar and do my sparring rounds with them, and you know, work with my coaches, and just all around always work to get better at everything.
So what you're saying now that you have your nose fixed and you're going to be able to breathe a little bit better, is this going to basically, we're going to see like an enhanced cardio version of Jimmie Rivera here moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, look at the Cody Stamen fight. I was only training for a consecutive maybe a month, about 5 weeks. You know what I mean? I just got back in. I just started sprinting. So the fight was in mid-July. I just got back mid-June, like training full-time and sprinted. So I was already at a pretty good peak that when I fought in July. And that was only in like, you know, I was training, say, 4 weeks. And I got the call on Monday. I got the call on Monday and I left on Thursday to Vegas. And I had trained one more day, Wednesday, like was my last training session before I left to Vegas. And from there, went in and I felt really good. I questioned my cardio a little bit, but I wasn't definitely not as tired as he was tired. And I felt like I could have went another round. So, yeah, definitely my cardio is up and it feels good to have it up.
Yeah, that's exciting to hear leading into this rematch. One more question about the Tiger Schulmans. I've become a really big fan of Impractical Jokers, and I saw recently, I guess it was like an earlier episode that they did. They actually came to the gym and did like a little prank. Were you there that day? Like, do you remember that?
No, that was so I believe, do you know what year it was? Or no,
Man,
or no?
it would have been.
It was a little bit way back, so it was probably like 10 to 15 years ago. And when they came, that was the old Manhattan school. So I actually took over. So that's old school, was 3 mats. When it closed down, when the lease was up, I took over half of it, and Lyman Good took over the other half. But at that time, it was owned and ran by Ron Showman, Tiger Showman's brother, and they came in and did that, and it was funny. It was there's actually been a handful of people that came in and trained and done stuff with us there. I know the Impractical Jokers came. We did some stuff for Santa Claus way back when. We would always have something going on. And then, you know, we also had like a handful of actors and singers and dancers and models that came in and trained and got in good shape and learned how to defend themselves. I think probably when I was in the city and we moved to school a little bit, I had you know, a few stars come in there with their kids training, which was cool. You just get that. It's a city's kind of like the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Now with COVID and everything, I don't really know. You know what I mean? I've heard things, and when I went in for the handful of times to move stuff out, a lot of places closed down and a lot of places didn't do well. I mean, they're trying to open stuff up now, but I think the city is probably going to take a while regroup and get back. I don't think it's going to happen within a year. I think it's going to take a little longer because, I mean, now I think I was just reading or my wife was telling me it was like 65% occupancy in the city. It's unheard of. It's never like that. It's always like you're bidding to get an apartment in the city. Now there's so much space. So it's tough. I mean, COVID has taken a big toll on everything, and dealing with it, it's been a pain in the butt, but it is what it is, and you just kind of got to, deal with it and keep working and hustling.
Absolutely. Hopefully it does start to open up at some point here in the relatively near soon future here. Before we talk about this upcoming fight with Pedro, I do want to just get your reaction to the McGregor-Poirier fight, because I myself, I mean, Poirier's improved so much since they fought the first time. I didn't expect it to go that way. Were you surprised at what happened?
I thought it was going to go the distance and it would be a good fight, but the way that Conor his style was different. It was weird. He was really far forward, and that's not usually his style. And Dustin, he basically took away that front leg, like throwing low kicks for cab kicks. And from there, Conor could put weight on the leg, and trying to dodge punches and only having one leg is tough. So I was very surprised, but it happened. Like I was like, I jumped forward in my seat. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe he finished him. And it was very unexpected. That fight and the Chandler fight, like I thought Chandler would have been a little bit more of a war too, and I couldn't believe he finished him that quick in the first round.
Yeah, it was really a crazy card. And I mean, if you were a betting man, you either could have lost a lot of money or made a bunch of money, depending on how you wanted to place your bets. But that was a really interesting card for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what did most of the underdogs won, I think, in that card, right? Too.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, I'm stoked for this rematch with you and Pedro Munhoz. He's number 8 in the division right now. You're number 9. He's coming off a split loss to Frankie Edgar. I'm sure you watched that fight, front to back, and have dissected it. Like, what did you take from that performance against Frankie, who, obviously former champion and really a legend here in MMA?
Well, when you just summing up the fight, I actually thought Frankie didn't win the fight. Pedro definitely didn't, like, Frankie definitely landed more, but the shots he landed weren't anywhere near as how hard Pedro was landing, how many more significant strikes he had, plus the ring control. That was huge too. So it was interesting to see go a split decision in towards Frankie. But I guess it is what it is. The takeaway of the fight is just, seeing things that Pedro does and just, making sure I don't get caught in them like Frankie did. That's it.
He's 7-3 since you guys fought the first time. He has some notable wins over Cody Garbrandt, Brian Caraway, Brett Johns. He also lost a unanimous decision to Aljamain Sterling, a guy that you know pretty well that you fought. Like, do you see evolution in his game, or do you feel like he's going to be a very similar fighter to the first time you fought him?
I see some evolution in his game. I think one of the biggest things that Pedro brings is he's a tough guy. I mean, when I fought him, you could throw a lot at him and he'll keep coming forward. He's just a tough SOB. But what's fun is what I do enjoy is just like the Jan fight. Someone just comes in. I look forward to that. I hate, when I fought Dotson, how I always had to chase Dotson. It wasn't a fun fight for me, but I like someone like, Pedro, Jan, that come in and just want to fight, So I'm looking forward to the fight. I'm excited for the style.
Do you feel like, yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I really like this matchup as well. Do you feel like you could get a finish in this fight, or are you expecting maybe this to go the distance? Like, what is your gut telling you as far as you?
My gut's telling me, honestly, it'd probably go the distance. It'd be a war like it did was last time. Last time it was a war. And it was a tough war for sure, especially when you're in Brazil and Brazilians don't like Americans. So that was tough. But, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be tough. But I'm going to definitely have some fun and enjoy it.
No doubt. Well, I'm assuming you see yourself victorious in this fight. Moving forward, I know you're not looking past him at all, but when you look at the division, you got a big matchup coming up right around the corner, Jan and Sterling for the title. Who do you see winning that, and how do you see the division kind of shaking out with you in particular if you do get this win?
I mean, one or two more fights, and then I could get maybe a title contendership. I think it all depends on performance with the UFC. There are some big fights coming up, so it'll be interesting to see what happens and kind of go from there. I don't know who would be next, to be honest. You know what I mean? I know they were mentioning like winner should fight Rob Font, you know, but then what's that leave, you know, for the other guys there? Does Rob Font want to fight right away? Because he just fought, what was it, January or December? January? It was January he fought?
Yeah.
So he might want to get in right away. It all depends on how I come out. So there's a lot of like question marks there to see. I'm just going to kind of focus on this fight, see what happens. Obviously try to get the win, and then after that, with the win, figure out where to go from there.
Who wins between Jan and Sterling?
You know, that's a tough one. I feel like if Sterling can get him down and keep using that range like he did, I feel like Sterling will win. But, you know, Jan's tough. I didn't really try to wrestle Jan that much. I kept it on standing because I was doing really well in the standing for the except for the last 10 seconds of the first round and the second round, where I got too relaxed. So it was a hard lesson learned. I don't know. I think I might have to go, and Sterling might be the underdog in the fight. I might have to go with the underdog Sterling in that fight.
Okay. I like it. The main event of your card, you got the welterweight strap on the line, Usman and Burns. Where are you leaning with that one?
I think I'm learning to Burns, to be honest with you. But
that's a banger.
He hasn't been in for a while, but it's gonna be very interesting. I mean, they've trained with each other for so many years and so many rounds, so it's gonna be really interesting to see how that goes, that fight. You know, Usman, when he fought Kobe, I actually, you know, he had a really good gas tank in that fight. Both of them did. It was just very interesting, but you know, none of them wrestled, and it all came down to striking. So it was very interesting to see how that went. And I was very surprised.
Yeah, that rematch definitely will do some huge pay-per-view numbers whenever that does happen. Well,
I mean, Masvidal and Kobe, that's a great fight too. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that there's some serious bad blood there. So obviously that's what the hardcores are really looking forward to right up next. Listen, Jimmie, always a pleasure to talk to you, my man. I really appreciate the time. Again, Jimmie will face Pedro Munhoz next February the 13th at UFC 258. Before I let you go, if you want to plug your social media or thank anyone, the floor is yours.
Yeah, man. You guys just follow me. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not on my Twitter a lot, but you know, Jimmie Rivera, Instagram, you follow me, message me, and that's it. I thank you for having me on your show.